we've got some new rules updates for the latest Psychic Awakening books. A fair few little things have been changed or clarified, so let's take a look. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where we're all about getting the most out of our models on the tabletop. Now Games Workshop have just released their FAQs for Psychic Awakening, Faith and Fury, and Blood of Baal. So today I'm just going to take a quick look at the Imperial side of the FAQs for these. I'm afraid I just don't know the Chaos and Tyranid sides well enough to be able to comment intelligently on them, but you're welcome to check out the full FAQs, which I'll post in the description below after this video. My overall take is that the Blood Angels have got a lot of small updates and clarifications. The Black Templars have got one big and obvious important clarification, and then a few other small bits too. We'll start with Blood of Baal, so let's take a look. We'll go through the Errata first. First of all, Astorath has been clarified to have the Litany of Hate and 2 other litanies of battle, as opposed to 3 other litanies as appeared on his datasheet in the book. This is a bit of a shame as it reduces the number of options that he knows. I'm not necessarily sure it was a big deal whether or not it was changed. The biggest deal is how many he can cast, which is 2. I guess it was unintentional and that's why they changed it, but personally I don't think it would have been the biggest deal just to leave it as 3 as printed. But oh well, he is still absolutely great. Next though, we have a buff for Lematis because they did not include the Black Rage rule on his new datasheet, meaning that he didn't technically have it as soon as that had been released for Faith and Fury. Lematis is already a close combat beast even without Black Rage, as he rerolls all of his own attacks from being Death Company, has a decent fighty Crozius, and can use Mantra of Strength to give himself +1 strengths, attacks and damage. When we stack Black Rage on top of that for an additional attack on the charge, and a very nice 6-up Feel No Pain to help him survive, he's become even more of a great value for points character. They apparently seem to have made the same mistake as they did with Astorath and gave him 1 litany more than they intended however, so they've changed him from being able to know 2 litanies to just being able to know 1 in addition to the standard Litany of Hate. I think that this is more to represent that he is on par with a regular chaplain, at least in terms of knowing litanies, so that's probably why they made the change. But like Astorath, I don't think it would have been too much of a big deal if they'd let him keep his 2 options. After all, he does only cast 1 per turn either way. Overall, a big win for Lematis though, I would say. They've also made the number of litany changes on the Chaplain and Terminator armour, the regular Chaplain and the Primaris Chaplain. They now all only know 1 litany, so the same change being applied there. And finally, the Sanguinary Priest was printed with And They Shall Know No Fear instead of Angels of Death, which some of you picked me up on when I was reviewing the Sanguinary Priest datasheet in a recent video, as I'd missed that change. Here they're just clarifying that that was an error. He is supposed to have Angels of Death, so gets Shock Assault, and the very nice Blood Angels combat doctrine. There's just 1 FAQ for the Blood of Baal book, which relates to the Flesh Tearer's Fury Within ability. This states that the model making a close combat attack gets an extra pip of AP when they roll a 6 to wound, and they've just clarified that that doesn't stack with the combat doctrines such as the Blood Angels Assault doctrine. I'm pretty sure this was already the case because in the wording for the combat doctrines it does say that it doesn't stack with any other modifiers to armor penetration, so that's just clarifying it there, so really this isn't a change at all. Again, I'm not 100% sure if it really needed to not stack. In general, I think that the Blood Angels are slightly stronger than the Flesh Tearers on the whole, but I think that wasn't really about making a balance change, it was just clarifying that that is the way that it worked as they've written it, so they weren't really looking to buff them additionally in this FAQ. So overall, only really minor changes for the Blood Angels. They've brought the Chaplains in line with their counterparts in other codexes in terms of litanies, and clarified that Lematis gets the Black Rage and Sanguinary Priest does get Angels of Death, so nothing too groundbreaking on the whole. Let's move on to Faith and Fury now. The biggest and most important clarification that they made for the Black Templars here was that the Black Templars do not get the benefit of both their super doctrine, Knights of Sigismund, and the Imperial Fist's super doctrine, Legacy of Dawn. Technically, before they gave this FAQ, the Black Templars could actually have access to both doctrines, as Black Templars are a successor chapter of the Imperial Fists in the background. To almost everyone though, it was quite obvious that Knights of Sigismund was meant to be instead of, not in addition to, Legacy of Dawn, so I'm not at all surprised that they made this clarification, just to show that that was really their intent. I think if they had meant for them to have this rule, then they would have included Black Templars in the Imperial Fist supplement, rather than their own standalone Faith and Fury rule set, so I think for most people the intent was perfectly clear. They've stated here in the designer's commentary that the Black Templar significantly deviates from the tactics employed by the Imperial Fists and can't make use of any of the rules in their Imperial Fist supplement. To be honest, I'm glad they made that change. It just seems a little bit daft to have the option of both Black Templar and Imperial Fist super doctrines within the same army to me. Other clarifications they've made are on the Vicious Riposte stratagem. This is the one where you can cause mortal wounds to your opponent on every saving roll of a 6 that you make when you make an armor save against an enemy attack. They've clarified that you do still make this roll, even if the armor penetration of the attack is so great that it would usually just cut straight through your armor. I think that this makes sense, to be honest, as it still lets the stratagem function, regardless of the attack being made, as it seems a bit silly that you could Vicious Riposte AP3 attacks but not AP4 attacks on your standard Space Marines, so good clarification I think. They further clarified the Vicious Riposte stratagem for the situation, say if you have just one Black Templar infantryman getting mugged by hundreds of attacks. In theory, if you had a huge mob of orcs or something do 120 attacks to one Black Templar sword brother, he could kill a hilarious amount of them with Vicious Ripostes, because although he'll almost certainly fail that save possibly 10 or 20 times over, he'll still make a whole bunch of 6s, thereby killing loads and loads of enemy models, even though he's clearly died very quickly. They've clarified if in such a situation, then you need to make the saving throws individually one at a time, which is technically how you're supposed to do it from the main rulebook anyway. It just usually doesn't make any difference, and it makes more sense to just speed roll it rather than rolling dice one by one. So if you do use the stratagem, you'll have to roll the dice one by one to try and get 6s, and you won't be able to do it anymore once your last model in the unit has been slain. I think that this does make sense from the point of view of how could a single infantryman make potentially dozens of Vicious Riposte mortal wound attacks while he's being mugged by an enormous amount of enemy models, so I think it makes sense from an in-game point of view. Next up are a couple of changes to Devout Push, one bit of Errata and one FAQ. The Errata says that it can only be used up to the end of the phase, which I think was made sense. I guess that's just to catch anyone saying that yes, this unit can consolidate 6 inches from now on, which to be honest obviously wasn't the intention. In the FAQ, they've also said that it can be applied to a unit that's not within 1 inches of the enemy army. Now, I'm honestly not 100% sure about how this works with the Devout Push stratagem. The wording on the stratagem says that you use this at the start of the fight phase, selecting a Black Templar infantry or biker unit. Until the end of the phase, that unit can pile in, and when the unit consolidates, it can move up to 6 inches instead of 3 inches. I'm a little bit confused as to whether or not the FAQ now means that you can select a Black Templar's unit that's outside 1 inches of an enemy model, use Devout Push to pile into that enemy model and then fight them, or whether they're just saying that you can use that stratagem on the Black Templar's infantry unit, and if they happen to be activated in close combat later in the turn because of the enemy piling into them, then you can get the benefit of that extended consolidate range. If any of you guys have any thoughts about that, then please let me know. I'm honestly not 100% sure about how that Devout Push stratagem is supposed to work. I suspect of the two it's probably the second one that's right, that you can't just use it to get free charges and free combats, but please let me know if you think differently. The next FAQ is that Fervent Acclamation, the chaplain litany that will allow you to add 3 inches to the range of friendly Black Templar aura abilities, does apply to the Aurelian Shroud, the relic that can for 1 turn only give you a 4-up invul save to units within 3 inches. That increases the range of that relic to 6 inches for the turn that it's in effect. I'm not 100% sure whether that's worth investing in an entire chaplain litany for, but that is quite a big bubble for quite a powerful effect, so it could potentially be worth it. The next FAQ pertains to Chaplain Grimaldus, who has a Warlord trait to allow him to deny the Witch, and also a unique rule that allows him to deny the Witch. They've clarified that yes, this means that he can deny the Witch twice if he takes that Warlord trait, which I do believe was how it works before. So if you make him your Warlord, then he'll be extra good at thwarting those Psykers. In terms of Errata for the Black Templars, they've changed the power level of a bunch of the datasheets. Helbrecht is now 8, the Emperor's Champion is now 4, and Chaplain Grimaldus is now 4. I believe that's to put them more in line with the points cost that they cost now, as roughly 1 power level equates to about 20 points typically. So it won't apply to match play games with points, but that could be handy for any people who do use power level out there. Finally, we have one FAQ from the Space Marine side of things, so this one's all the changes that we'll be seeing to the Masters of the Chapter, at least until the Spring Balance update, and it's this. They're just clarifying that the Chief Apothecary with the Selfless Healer Warlord trait, the one that allows him to use medical attention twice. Basically we'll just let him do that twice, either heal or revive twice on one unit, or heal or revive once each on 2 different units. As far as I know, this was the way it worked before, so no real change there to my mind. One thing that I thought they might have changed if they were doing any balance updates in this FAQ was the Master of Machines Warlord trait for the Master of the Forge, the one that gives all Space Marine vehicles within 6 inches +1 to hit. That one is an insanely strong Warlord trait. I honestly wouldn't be too surprised if that does take a hit in the balance change FAQ that comes out in spring, but I guess we'll wait and see. So overall, I think that was a reasonable FAQ that addressed a few of the obvious mistakes and omissions and clarifications in both of these books. Please let me know what your thoughts are on both of the books down in the comments below, and particularly let me know if there are any changes that you were expecting to see that didn't get fixed in this FAQ as well. We'll be continuing with our regular coverage tomorrow. We've got a review of Gabriel Seth and the Mortis Dreadnought coming, so feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see those, and to support me on Patreon if you are enjoying my content. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.